Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I'm absolutely delighted that Piers Morgan is with me. But first, Allegra. Allegra.
So, look, here at Peston on Sunday, we have done some analysis. OK, actually, our researcher, Holly, did some analysis on all of the tweets sent by the president-elect since the beginning of the year and all of the things he has, his favourite words, Will, never said, I like that one, and then media and dishonest. This Twitter account is not to be mocked. His tweets affect the value of the Mexican peso so much that it would supposedly be cheaper for Mexico to buy Twitter and shut down the real Donald Trump. And it is not just Mexico who would like to shut down his Twitter account. Have a look at these. So these tweets shift markets. This is him attacking General Motors for making cars in Mexico. Off the back of it, Ford took note, cancelled their new plans for a new factory in Mexico, moved some of the jobs to Michigan instead. You've got another one here. Sorry, I don't quite trust Screeny this morning. This tweet is about the cost of the new Air Force One. As a result, Boeing's shares took a nosedive and about $1 billion was wiped off the company's stock market value. And just one more, in case you don't believe me, after Trump tweeted about the cost of fighter jets getting out of control, the company that makes them, Lockheed Martin, had £1.6 billion wiped off their share price. That is £14 million per character. Is it any wonder there is a new Trump trigger app that lets investors know when the Donald tweets about companies they have shares in? Robert.
Well, I said I was delighted to be joined by Piers Morgan because he then immediately started to heckle Allegra, so that was all a terrible mistake. Piers, I just wondered how it feels to be probably the last person in Britain to be supporting Donald Trump. Even Nigel Farage isn't quite as enthusiastic as you are.
Well, that's because Trump doesn't follow Farage on Twitter, where he does follow me. I'm the only Brit that Trump follows on Twitter, which obviously that enrages everybody. I get it. The thing about Trump is that I think that if you've known him as I've done for 10 years, nothing about his behavioural pattern now is surprising, nor is it overly shocking. He's not the monster that people want him to be. He's not an angel. He's somewhere in between. But what he is at his heart is a pragmatic businessman. And he views politics like he views business. And I think
just because lots of people think that is a big mistake.
I think it's great. I
Why?
honestly think it's great.
Why do you
because I think the political elites for a very long time have managed to bamboozle people into thinking the only way to run anything politically is through politicians, career politicians. I would argue their performance in the last 20 years is demonstrable evidence that that is not actually the case.
But hang on, he runs a campaign attacking Wall Street, and then he appoints half of Wall Street, you know, to his government.
Well,
I mean, that's just hypocrisy.
Well, I say this. Let's judge him on what he actually does as president. Let's judge these people on what they do as president. What he's put in his cabinet are a bunch of deal-making killers. And he always said to me, if he ever got to be president, because remember, he's flirted with us a few times before, and I've interviewed him many times when he nearly ran 4 years ago. He said to me, I won't have diplomats doing my deals with China, with India, with Mexico, whatever. I will have killer deal makers. Yeah. Some of these guys he's put in there, you will know this, are some of the best deal makers in America. If he can, I can guarantee you, if he can deliver on the economy and on jobs, if he can keep America safe, he can deal with immigration, then he will be an incredibly popular president. They don't give a damn about all the other stuff, which is offending the snowflake liberal elites of the world.
But shouldn't it worry us that the people who voted for him don't give a damn, as you put it, about the way that he behaves?
No, I don't really care, actually. I mean, Obama is the most perfectly behaved human being that's ever lived, if you believe his supporters. He boasts himself in one of his great valedictory speeches he's been making recently about how brilliant he's been, how scandal-free. And he is. He's a nice guy. Let me finish my point.
Sure.
He's a very nice guy, Obama.
Yeah.
But I also would argue that he has been a very mediocre president who's delivered very, very little for anybody who doesn't live in New York and Los Angeles. And the middle America reaction to Obama's 8 years was to vote in Donald Trump, who is the complete opposite of everything that Obama stands for. So what does that tell you?
So, but just to be clear, though, if it doesn't really matter how he behaves, why did you devote so much passion and column inches to denying what a supposedly respected former spy said, which is that, you know, Donald Trump paid some women to wee on his bed?
Because there's no evidence. And I'm sorry, but, you know, at some point, BuzzFeed, who broke this story, everybody had it in mainstream media in America. They'd all had this document. None of them had published it. CNN, who he lambasted, in my view, unfairly, and I worked there and I like those guys, but they were not the ones who published the detail. BuzzFeed, a big website now globally, just ran the unexpurgated, unchecked, unverified stuff. Now, if
But hang on a second, it was given...
But Robert, if journalism now is about just putting anything out there, and they're major publishers now, whether they admit it or not, then journalism, as we know it, is dead.
But let's look at politics now, because demonstrably, Donald Trump, during the campaign, said a whole variety of things that we know are simply not true. So if you have a president elected on a platform of untruths, don't the rules of the game change for the media too?
Well, I've got Alastair Campbell's eye in the background there, snarling at me, you know, yeah, get him, Robert. And I'm like, yeah, well, I seem to remember...
Ask him about the fake photos, Robert.
Well, mate, I don't think you should get into fake material, should you? The great sexed-up dossier king of all time.
4 inquiries, 4 clear.
You know, I heard you earlier talking about Trump being a narcissistic hawk. Well, you should know, buddy.
Listen, I'll tell you what. Robert, can I say something about that?
Please.
Piers and I have just had a very lively chat for GQ magazine.
We have.
My first question was, scale of 1 to 10, Piers, how big is your ego? He said 9. I said, Trump, how big is his ego? He said 10. That, to me, is a definition of narcissism.
What you didn't ask me was how big is Tony Blair's, to which I would have said 11. So let's get things in perspective, shall we?
Let me just say, Robert, if you... The way because I think it's... I like Piers' loyalty, and I also like the fact that he's spotted a kind of... a nice little bit of brand management for himself as, you know, him and Farage as Trump's best friends in the UK, fine. But I do think there's a problem. Yes, politicians have big egos, but Trump, you can see this from the way that he's projected himself during the campaign and since. He sees everything as being about himself. Meryl Streep makes a speech, he has to attack.
You defended Trump on that, didn't you?
Yeah, but let me make one thing.
But you saw the clip, though, I mean, it was offensive, wasn't it?
Which one are you talking about?
Where Donald Trump makes fun of...
OK, but that's a good example, I would argue, where Trump has been vehemently saying, ever since that video came out, I was not mocking the guy's disability. I was mocking...
He was, though!
Wait, let me finish Please, let me finish, gentlemen.
Piers.
I was mocking his weakness. A website then went and found 4 or 5 other examples of Trump doing exactly the same movement of his hand to demonstrate somebody's weakness. So I would say the jury's out on whether he deliberately mocked a disabled guy. But putting aside all that, let me just say this. I spent a lot of time in the last year travelling around Florida and Texas. I personally wouldn't vote for Trump. I'm more the liberal end of American politics. Although I thought Hillary
would you have voted for Hillary?
Well, I wouldn't have voted for Hillary because I think she was a terrible candidate.
So you just wouldn't have voted?
Yeah, I mean, in this country, in the last election, I voted for the Animal Welfare Party in Kensington, who lost their deposit. Because I wouldn't vote for Cameron and I wouldn't vote for Ed Miliband. So I tend to vote, if I see a good leader who might improve my life, I'll vote for them. I haven't seen that with Hillary Clinton or with the people here. But Trump, to me, is somebody who, you know, right now, what's the big story today? Brexit, right? Theresa May is taking this country out of Europe, and she wants a hard Brexit. That means we have to do very quick deals with a lot of big countries. What better way for her to start than to do a great trade deal with Donald Trump, who thinks he's half British? His mum was born and raised since she was 18. He thinks he's got British blood. He told me that himself. He's desperate to do a deal with us. Let's get in there and start by doing a great trade deal with Donald Trump.
We're almost out of time, but I just want to ask you on... you plainly have a much better relationship with Donald Trump than any member of the current government. If Theresa May asked you to help with that deal, would you help the government? Would you help the government get closer to Trump?
I think the nation would like that very much. Here's what I think. All I could advise...
Come on.
All I could advise...
Would you get involved?
...is what kind of personality are you dealing with Donald Trump? Donald Trump is someone...
Has she asked your advice?
I can't comment on my conversations with the Prime Minister or indeed the President.
That's the first time in history
let me answer.
Piers won't answer a question about
how to deal with Donald Trump. If you show him respect, or at least if you're fair to him, and I've written columns whacking him all over the place, but he thinks
I've been told I've got to.
But if you do, he will show it back. If you monster him, he'll come after you.
Thank you, Piers.
I've been getting